Bonjour mon ami, my name's Stephanie and welcome to today's video. I'm so excited to show you this very special upcoming collection from Cracked, which is a collaboration with Corbeau. Corbeau is a hole-in-the-wall French restaurant that's local to Monique, and what better way to support local businesses than to collaborate with them. And in very exciting news, if you are local to this restaurant, if you dine in during the month of September while wearing one of these collaboration shades, you'll get a free dessert, which I think is so freaking cool. I cannot express how jealous I am of that, but I will talk more about these at the end after comparisons. Before we get into the swatches, I want to give a very big thank you to Cracked for sponsoring this video. So while that means I'm being paid to swatch and share these with you, my thoughts and opinions are still honest and my own. So without further ado, let's just get into it. The first shade we have is Crowfriend, and this one is described as a blackened navy blue cream. I definitely would agree with that description. It is a super dark navy in a super gorgeous, highly pigmented formula. I would say almost a one coater. I feel like I did have a little bit of a light spot on the left side of my nail, but it's barely noticeable. So if your nails are shorter, you might be able to get away with this in one coat, but I did two just to make sure everything was fully opaque, and I love the shade so much. I feel like you don't really see the nuance of what a gorgeous navy this is. It just kind of looks so dark on camera that it can almost look black, admittedly, maybe in lower lighting especially, but it's such a gorgeous navy in every other lighting. Next we have Special Occasion, which is a soft white pink crelly. I know on camera it might pick up as a pure white, but it'll be easier to see that later in the comparison portion. But at the same time, it is definitely a very white based kind of shade. Like there's just a single drop of pink in there, and I really love it. I know some people think shades like these are just so boring, but I always think they have such a classy, elegant vibe to them. The formula on this was okay. I feel like after the first coat it did look a little bit streaky, but then it did also self-level pretty nicely, I noticed. But on the second coat I ended up getting a pretty bare streak on the left side of my nail, so I didn't really have great application there. So I did need a third coat to really even it out, and it just brought the color up a bit more. But on my full hand swatch I'm just showing the two coats, and I found the application to be a lot easier that way when I wasn't filming. And yeah, I think this gives such a nice your nails but better kind of look. It's just so fresh and clean. I feel like this could also work for like a bridal color. Up next we have Pickle Plate, which is described as a yellow-green cream. This had a pretty similar formula to Crowfriend, where it is just so incredibly pigmented and creamy on the first coat, as you can see here. Practically a one coater, but I still did it two just to make sure everything is fully evened out. I did find the formula on this one felt a little bit thick, where I might need to add thinner in the future, but it also wasn't difficult to work with. I would just say to not overwork it or be too slow with your application. As I'm sure you could probably guess, this is my least favorite from the quad. It's just that certain shade of chartreuse that I don't find super flattering on me. It kind of gives me this sickly vibe, but I do love it in combination with the other colors. And rounding out the quad is Jambon, which is a muted warm rose crelly. This one is much more up my alley. It is such a lovely, flattering kind of shade. And even though this one is a crelly similar to Special Occasion, I found that it's a little bit more on the creamy side, almost like a slightly thinned out cream, but it has a really smooth, easy to work with formula, still super highly pigmented, so I found it basically fully opaque on two coats. And if you don't know, because I didn't, jambons are a puff pastry that are filled with ham and cheese. So if you were thinking this is a ham colored polish, you'd technically be right. That being said, I still think it's a flattering color. I just love dusty rose shades like this so much. And here is my full hand swatch collage of the Corbeau collab. absolutely love this little color palette. It's inspired by their logo and it's just so satisfying. The jelly of the month for August is out of the Orchid-nary, which is obviously an orchid jelly. So it's a nice mix of a pink and purple kind of shade in a glassy jelly kind of finish. This had a nice and smooth formula that was also self-leveling, so I feel like it can look nice on one coat if you wanted just a really light wash of color. But of course, I think it is going to look a bit better once you build it up in 2 or 3 coats where it just intensifies the color even more. And yeah, there's not much else to say about this. I mean, I normally don't love an orchid pink. I feel like they usually are hit or miss for me, but I did think this one was pretty cute. If anything, I wish it just had a little bit more pigmentation or saturation, but it did also build up nicely in the 3 coats. So I think I'm mainly feeling that way just seeing my full hand swatch in the 2 coats where it's just a little bit lighter than I would want it to be. And from the bonus shades, the first one we have is Stroll After Dark, which is described as a dark gray packed with a large blue aurora shimmer. This had a super pigmented formula. I was honestly expecting it to be on the more sheer side as shimmers normally are, but as you can see, I got incredible coverage on the first coat alone. It was just really impressive. Potentially another 1 coater if you do have shorties, but again, I did do 2 coats just to make sure it's a fully opaque mani. And yeah, this one is just so stunning. I love the blue shimmer against the gray. I mean, even the base almost looks like a denim blue, I guess because of the shimmer, but it is just so beautiful. Just a moody blue, perfect for fall. And the other bonus shade is Shmexy, which is described as a dark maroon jelly. So I accidentally had a little too much polish on the brush on the first coat, as you can probably tell here. So I was struggling a little bit and it resulted in a little bit of this uneven application here where you can just see some lighter spots here and there. And unfortunately, I feel like that just still showed through on the second coat, even though I obviously tried to even it out as best as I could. I feel like it is somewhat hard to see because it is a bit of a darker color, so it can be forgiving depending on the lighting that you're in, I think. But yeah, if you are going to be maybe outside or just in more bright direct lighting, I would recommend doing a 3rd coat just to make sure things are fully opaque, and it also just deepens the color again and makes it more schmexy. For my full hand swatch where I'm just showing the 2 coats with a glossy top coat, if you look close enough, I feel like you can see some unevenness. So unfortunately, I did sort of struggle with the application on the rest of my nails as well. I think maybe I'll add a couple of drops of thinner just to loosen the formula a bit. And here's a little collage of just the extra shades this month. Obviously not meant to be cohesive, but I just wanted to show them off together. Now for comparisons, we're starting with Crowfriend, and I first wanted to see this next to Bluebell Bonnet, which is a blue cream, but that's a lot lighter. I actually think the color might be a little closer to Sloe, which was one of their jellies last month, but that one's also a tiny bit lighter. From Mooncat, the closest shades that I had were Misery is my favorite color and Treachery in the blue, or at least the cold state that you see in the bottle, but again, those are both still too light. So for some actual navy leaning creams, I pulled out Olive Ave's MOTN, or Middle of the Night, and Zoya's Brett. Sadly, neither of these really compare. MOTN is a little bit more vibrant in the shade of blue, maybe more like a royal or midnight blue instead of a navy, and Brett is a little bit more muted in its undertone. So for a darker blue from Olive Ave, I pulled out Pluto, which as you can see is a very inky sort of blue-black kind of shade. And I thought the closest shade that I would have in my collection was Static's Rio, which in the bottle it does look incredibly similar, but on the nail it's just a little too light, while Pluto, as expected, is a bit too dark. Next for special occasion, here it is quickly next to Vanille, which is a pure white milky jelly, so hopefully you can see that drop of pink in a special occasion. But again, because it is this milky, crelly kind of formula, on the first coat it can look like Vanille. Which, you know what, let me just show you. I actually came back to re-swatch these for you just so you can see them side by side. So here is 1 coat of each, but I will be also showing them in 2 and 3 coats. Special occasion is definitely very, very white adjacent, to the point that if you do 3 coats of that, I feel like the color looks almost the same as 2 coats of Vanille because you get that slight pinky color of my nail bed coming through. But once you do the 3rd coat of Vanille, it just pushes it more to a stark white. For other white and pink shades, I pulled out I'm Shy, which is a very light baby pink crelly, and I also pulled out Donut Spunk, which is a shimmer, but I just thought the color in the bottle looks so much like Special Occasion. So at least for color reference, if you do have Donut Spunk, you basically can see what color Special Occasion is, but on the nail they apply very differently, again, because one is just a crelly compared to a shimmer. It might have been my application, but I'm Shy looked a bit more buildable. Also for reference, I did want to quickly show this next to Mooncat's Getting Even Nail Primer, which is pretty much the same as any other pink tinted base coat. You can see it's just a lot more white based in comparison. And for Cirque jellies, I pulled out Organza and Odette. Organza is much more yellow leaning in comparison. I don't know why I thought it would be close at all. Obviously between these two, I would say Odette is the closest. I think that one came out in the Ballet Core collection, if that's what it was called. They look pretty much the same on the first coat, but on the second coat, I think Cracked looks a little bit more white based. So they're not exact dupes, but they both give you that your nails but better kind of look. Then for Pickle Plate, we of course are looking at it next to Banana Slug, which came out in the most recent Rainforest collection. Obviously that one is a shimmer, and they are slightly different in the base colors, where I think Banana Slug is a little bit more green. So not a dupe, but definitely could be related. For actual creams, the only other olivey chartreuse shades that I have are Mooncat's Highway Glow and Holo Taco's Not Pressed. Highway Glow is much more vibrant, basically like a lime green in comparison, and Not Pressed is a bit darker and more olivey, but kind of in that same yellowy green family. And just for reference, I also have Cirque's Starfruit Jelly and ILNP's Willow, which are kind of like chartreusey greens, but as you can see, they are much more green leaning. When I first saw Pickle Plate, I was immediately reminded of Pistachio Buttah, but seeing the swatch, it looks a little bit more dingy, like maybe more of a brown undertone, and it was also a jelly. For a chartreuse cream, I think the closest shade is Olive Ave's Channel, which came out in last year's summer collection. Maybe that one is a bit more green. Next for Jambon, I pulled out You Want a Peach of Me, which is a much lighter peachy orange kind of jelly, and also simply Mauvelous Dahling, which is more of this dusty mauve. And for other shades, I pulled out Essie's Eternal Optimist, which is one of the oldest shades in my collection at this point, still only halfway through, and NCLA's 75 Degrees is freezing in LA. I just thought color-wise in the bottle they look kind of similar, but on the nail that one is a lot more muted. The Essie is definitely the closest to being a potential dupe. I think the Cracked is just a smidge warmer. And for another rosy pink, I have Holo Taco's Low Key Blushing from a previous fall collection. They definitely have a really similar vibe and color. I think the Holo Taco is just a little bit more pink or just vibrant. It sucks that I don't have this to compare directly anymore, but I would guess that ILNP's Rosewood is the closest to a dupe because it's also incredibly similar to Low Key Blushing, but just slightly more muted. Then for Out of the Orchid-nary, I wanted to quickly show this next to Vacation Mode from an earlier summer collection. That one is a bit more purple and vibrant, not to mention it's a true cream instead of a jelly. So the closest jellies that I have were Cirque's Pitaya jelly on the left and lilac jelly on the right. I'm going to be showing these in a combination of 1, 2, and 3 coats because the colors are kind of similar, but the coverage is pretty different. As you can see from the first coat here, the cracked is a lot more sheer, so doing the second coat of that looks a lot more like the one coat of the Cirque shades, where you just get that subtle wash of color, and on the second coat, the Cirque jellies build up a lot more. They're just more saturated and pigmented, but the cracked does catch up on the third coat. And it's sort of an in-between of these two where I feel like the color is a little similar to Pitaya, just like a few shades lighter, but the value is closer to lilac jelly. So since Out of the Orchid-nary had a little bit more of this pink undertone to it, I also pulled out Cirque's Pink Lady Jelly and LA Colors Illusion, which is more of a sheer glassy kind of jelly. So here you can see on the first coat of each, they are pretty similar honestly, but once we do a second coat, you can see the differences in their color, where Pink Lady is a little bit lighter and Illusion is a bit darker and warmer, but they make for a cute Skittle. For Stroll After Dark, I was immediately reminded of shades like Another Day in the PNW or PB and Blue Jay, but they are darker and lighter respectively, and I feel like the gray base is a lot more evident in Another Day in the PNW, but that one has a green shimmer, so I think the closest shade that I had to this was Mooncat's Misery Is My Favorite Color, which I actually can't remember if it's described as having a gray base, but it's a very gray blue kind of color with a darker cobalt blue shimmer, so this is like the deeper, moodier sibling of the cracked. And while this is a different finish having an iridescent flaky, I thought the base color of ILNP's Rainy Days was going to be close, but that one's a bit too light. And finally for Shmexy, I first pulled out Crack's Worthy of Love and Red, which are both technically red creams. Maybe red was described as a crelly, but either way, it's a much deeper oxblood red. And Worthy of Love, I remember having like a brownish undertone, but that one's still a little too dark compared to Shmexy. So for some jellies, I pulled out my Blood Aches, which is kind of a rusty red jelly, and Strawberry Jam, which is a much lighter red-pink berry color, so these don't really compare either. Maybe Shmexy could be like a combination of these two, but it's a bit darker. I also pulled out Plum Cot, which was one of their new jellies that released last month. That one is also a little bit orangey red leaning and also a lot more sheer in comparison. So I think the closest shade as far as like the base color goes is Thumbprint Cookie from the Bramble Cafe collection earlier in the spring. I know on the first coat Shmexy almost has this hot pink undertone to it, but it does deepen up a lot on the second coat, so it does look really similar to Thumbprint Cookie, but I think that one's maybe a bit darker. And from Cirque, I have Wine Jelly on the left and Mexican Cola Jelly on the right from the Jarritos collab a few summers ago. Technically, that one should be closer because it is a deep red with like a brown undertone, while Wine Jelly has more of this purple undertone. So I could see that one looking a little closer, at least if you do 2 coats, because the level of saturation is kind of the same, but maybe if you did a couple more coats of Mexican Cola Jelly, it could look similar to Shmexy. And lastly, I have ILNP's Dahlia from their Thorns collection and Starly's Bloodbelly Jelly. I feel like these have a similar sort of undertone and color to them, especially on the first coat of each, but Dahlia is the deepest, as you can tell from the bottle alone. Starly is maybe the closest looking, but it's a bit more of this vibrant color. And the second coat of Shmexy really brings in that brownish maroon undertone too. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons with Crack's upcoming collaboration with Corbeau, their Jelly of the Month, and the 2 bonus shades. These are all going to be launching on August 21st at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And as a reminder, I am an affiliate with Crack. So if you want to shop these while supporting me and my channel, you can do so by shopping through my link in the description box or by using my discount code YOGI10 to save 10% off your order. As always, a big thank you to all of you who do use my code and support me through that. You guys went absolutely crazy last month during the flash sale, so I would love to know what you guys all got. But as far as this video and these releases go, the collab, like I said, is just so fun. I just love the idea of partnering with like your favorite restaurants. I know I'm not the only one who loves and appreciates Monique's creative vision with her brands and her collections, and I feel like to actually collab with a specific place is just so above and beyond. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it too, but the colorway of this little quad is inspired by the colors of the restaurant. Like you'll see it in their logo, in their menu, the website, and all of that, and I just really love it. It's just such a satisfying color palette with like some unexpected shades that all work well together. So I really enjoyed it more than I thought that I would. I'm not surprised that my favorite are the navy blue and the sheer off-white pink. They just are so beautiful. The green, respectfully, is not for me. It just unfortunately is a little too prugly, like too chartreuse, which, as you might know, is not my favorite color, but I am happy for the prugly lovers out there because Monique really knows how to make a prugly. And obviously I love the dusty pink too. I mean, it kind of honestly matches like my shirt color, but I know it being a reference to ham might not be the most satisfying to some people, but I think it works. And for the extras, I thought they were really nice as well. Like the Jelly of the Month is a super cute shade. Part of me still wishes it was a little bit more saturated. I feel like that one is just one that I would appreciate more in the springtime, where it's like a little bit of a softer color, you know? And then for the shimmer, I love a moody blue, so I knew that one was going to be so gorgeous. And I feel like it is really similar, or at least like in that same family as Another Day in the PNW, for example. So it's just so nice, especially for the upcoming fall season. And lastly, with Shmexy, I love the color of it. I just wish I loved the formula a little bit more. I'm sure adding some thinner to like sort of loosen it up a bit would help, but I'm glad that Monique shared that one because it originally was just like a prototype kind of shade when she was making some other reds. And I think she shared the prototype like on the Facebook group and people were going crazy over it. And so she ended up releasing it. So I feel like there is a lot of fun stuff in the Facebook group. Like so many of the bonus shades that Cracked comes out with are like inspired or first shared over there. So if you're on Facebook, maybe go check them out. I sadly am not on Facebook, but it's always fun to just get them afterwards. But yeah, overall, a really fun lineup of releases. Again, I'm just so excited for this collaboration and I'm so jealous of anybody who is local. As a reminder, if you wear any of these collab shades while dining in during the month of September, you'll get a free dessert if you mention it to the server. So I will also have Corbeau's website linked down below if you want to make your reservation. But yeah, let me know what you think or which ones were your favorites down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!